Outside of the occasional stinkers, the run that D'Lo has been on has been special, and what's truly outstanding about it is that it's something that feels completely sustainable. That is, as long as D'Lo doesn't revert to his old ways, and as long as he maintains the right attitude. In Minnesota, although D'Lo and Gobert were two supremely talented players who would have playstyles that would complement each other, they just couldn't figure it out. To nobody's surprise, D'Lo's attitude towards not being able to figure it out with Gobert would ultimately play a large part in his departure from Minnesota. To quote a report from 2023, D'Lo tried to make it work, but it was uncomfortable at times. We would come into the locker room and you could hear him actively bemoaning the situation. I've talked to coaches and players from other teams who heard him getting down on Rudy during games. There was this perception that D'Lo was very frustrated with Gobert, and didn't seem as open to working with him or trying to find a happy medium as some of the other players were trying to do. Now let's go ahead and end that quote because I have something to say while we're on the topic of the Gobert trade. Isn't it crazy that the same trade that was universally viewed as a failure as recent as a year ago now has the Timberwolves towering over most teams in the NBA. The Timberwolves have been missing their second best offensive player for a good chunk of this year, and yet they just continue to steamroll teams. So with D'Angelo Russell having chemistry issues with Gobert and the T-Wolves seeking a better fit for their expensive investment, this would lead to D'Lo finding himself back where it all started ahead of last year's trade deadline. Los Angeles. With D'Lo having unfinished business in LA, him landing back there would be a dream scenario for him. Turns out that it would also be a dream scenario for the Los Angeles Lakers, who were heavily struggling upon his arrival. The addition of D'Lo, along with a flurry of other moves made by Rob Pelinka, would help to provide a spark to the at the time 13th placed Los Angeles Lakers, who sorely needed one. D'Lo would finish his first season back in LA averaging 17.4 points as the Lakers would finish 7th in the Western Conference. But with D'Lo shooting 8 of 27 through his first 3 games of the Western Conference Finals, he would get moved to the bench for Game 4 as the Lakers would go on to get swept by the eventual champs, the Denver Nuggets. This benching didn't sit well with D'Lo because for him, he felt like there was something deeper at play. Earlier this season, D'Lo did an interview with ESPN, and although the timing was weird, the interview uncovered a lot. According to D'Lo, Ham having a prior relationship with Schroeder led to Ham showing favoritism towards Schroeder, which would lead to the eventual benching and scapegoating of D'Lo during the playoffs. If you let D'Lo tell it, Schroeder's relationship with Ham was the reason that he couldn't have a proper relationship with Ham. When I tell you guys that I wasn't prepared for an interview like this to drop this season while the Lakers were playing relatively well, I wasn't prepared for something like this to drop. D'Lo continued saying, when I was struggling, I would have been able to come up to the coach and say, bro, this is what we should do, like I can help. Instead, there was no dialogue and I just accepted it. What's funny is that everybody that has watched the Lakers play this season could see that Darvin Ham hasn't been shy about playing his favorites in Los Angeles. There has been no other explanation as to why this man has trusted Cam Reddish and Taurean Prince so much this year, even opting to start them alongside Anthony Davis and LeBron James at one point in time. That's pretty bad, right? The thing is, it's one thing that us fans see something like this happening and say that Ham is playing favorites, but it's another thing when the Lakers' own players are saying this, because that's a problem in itself. How are players supposed to feel when there is a general feeling amongst them that however they perform simply doesn't matter because the guy in charge is going to play whoever the guy in charge likes no matter what? I played for a coach who played favorites, and let me tell you that it was miserable. I absolutely hated it. It was a 0 out of 10 experience. But I'm sure you guys don't need me to tell you, and you could imagine the impact that a coach playing favorites would have on a team. So with D'Lo feeling like last season's scapegoat, the Lakers were lucky that they were even able to retain D'Lo. Now, although the Lakers were able to retain D'Lo, his current contract has a strategically placed player option for this upcoming season that he seems to be set to take advantage of thanks to his scorching hot play this year. What a turnaround that it has been for D'Angelo Russell. At the beginning of the season, it felt like D'Lo was somebody that couldn't consistently stay on the floor, and now he's somebody that this team doesn't want to leave it. Since January 1st, D'Angelo Russell would average 20.4 points, 3.3 rebounds, and 6.6 assists, shooting 44.9% from the field and 42.4% from 3. His gravity has been so real this season The teams are afraid to give him clear looks on half-court bombs.
I mean, I guess they could have gotten an ultra-quick 2-for-1. But they're just going to work for a good shot up 105-86. But D'Angelo does fire it up, and they might get that 2-for-1 anyway. AD wants to get rid of it and does. AD really got fouled. They didn't call it. D'Lo at the buzzer!
When D'Lo is on, he can shoot the ball as well as anybody in the league, as evidenced by that 2-for-1 sequence that I just showed you. How many guys are doing this? Hitting a logo 3, then getting ran at half court, only to hit a running 3-pointer right after that logo 3. Look, I know that reports existed earlier this season that said that D'Lo had no market, but those reports were for a different D'Lo. This D'Lo is for sure going to have a market once he enters free agency, which means that D'Lo is playing well, which is a good thing, but at the same time, a D'Lo with too high of a demand could present a problem for the Los Angeles Lakers. So you know what, let's just assume that the reports are correct and that D'Lo declines that player option on his contract. As a Lakers fan, do you think that you would be comfortable losing D'Lo? Because that's a real possibility. We're already starting to see rumors about potential D'Lo suitors. To quote Jovan Buha, who has been talking to people with the Lakers and outside of the Lakers, Orlando is the team that probably gives the most concerns to the Lakers in terms of a potential suitor. The good news for the Lakers is that D'Lo wants to remain with the Lakers in free agency. The bad news is that we know that this man wants to get paid and that he also hasn't had the best relationship with his coach, which, to be completely fair to D'Lo and Darvin Ham, their relationship has improved a lot. Late in the season, we've seen this pairing start to display some confidence in each other, and this confidence has helped the Lakers to finish this season a whole lot stronger than they started it. When last season's playoffs finished, you couldn't have told me that I'd be hearing Darvin Ham say that D'Lo doesn't have a green light. He has a green room. You also couldn't have told me that I'd be hearing D'Lo actually give Darvin Ham his flowers. But again, there's a chance that all of this could potentially be irrelevant, because there's a chance that Ham is gone after this season. If this man fails to make it back to the Western Conference Finals, then I personally think that there's no chance that we see him return to Los Angeles. I mean, seriously, what are the chances that Ham is back in Los Angeles next season? We've seen a lot of reports that have alluded to the fact that LeBron James and a lot of this Lakers team just hasn't vibed with Darvin Ham. Guys, we could be looking at a potentially crazy offseason for the Los Angeles Lakers. Let's say that LeBron returns for Los Angeles. The Lakers are still all in, and D'Lo does solid in the playoffs. If you guys were the Lakers, how much would you be willing to pay a D'Lo that opted out of $18 million this upcoming season? While I have the utmost faith in D'Lo, I don't think that I'd want to pay him much more annually than he's making right now. But at the same time, when it comes to contracts, you can do a whole lot worse than overpaying D'Lo. Here's a reminder that nobody needs, but there are some really bad contracts out there. That doesn't mean that I'd overpay D'Lo, especially when I got Austin Reeves locked up so cheap. I'm just saying that you could do a whole lot worse than doing so. When it comes to D'Lo, if I were a Lakers fan, I'd appreciate the season that he's given us, but at the same time, I would recognize that we would need to keep our options open and that a potential upgrade would not necessarily be the worst thing, especially if D'Lo becomes too expensive. A huge part of his value this season, at least for me, was him outplaying his deal. For D'Lo, I really feel like these playoffs are going to tell us a lot when it comes to his potential and future in LA. And honestly, you could say that's going to be the case for a lot of this Lakers squad. Here's to hoping that D'Lo goes off this postseason. This year, he just has to go off. He can't be out there dropping 4.2 of 9 stinkers like he just did in his recent game against the Grizzlies. Look, D'Lo, I get it, you had a bad game, but that doesn't mean that you can go out there and just not care. At the end of the day, you still have to go out there and find multiple ways to impact the game, even if your shot isn't falling. Again, look guys, as much as I love D'Angelo Russell and as much as I support Darvin Ham, as we all know, sometimes old habits die hard, which I'm really hoping to that not being the case in Los Angeles. So I finally come to a number that I'd be comfortable offering D'Angelo Russell, and don't get mad at me when I say this, but for D'Lo, I'm feeling something like 4 years, $80 million. I don't think that I'd be comfortable offering him more than that, but that's just me. As a D-Lo fan, I'm terrified of this man just checking out and deciding to not play any defense at the blink of an eye. The good D-Lo is great, he's amazing, but the bad D-Lo can get really bad. Honestly, there's really no right answer in this situation. Clicking the video on the screen right now is a great way to support my channel. I'm GetLikeCoop, bringing you guys the scoop until our next upload.